Hi, I'm Chagai. I really like free software and also open source. I also like decentralized systems and chat apps. Uh, all this made me really happy to discover the Matrix protocol and the community behind it, and that's what I'm here to show you today. So, what is Matrix? Matrix is mainly an instant messaging protocol. It's open source. There's clients and servers which are open source, and it's federated. So if you're familiar a bit with how email works, basically servers can speak to servers. Why use Matrix? First of all, you want to own your own data. Um, that's pretty cool. Second, privacy and security is much better this way. And third, the communication is better in general in the world. We have less data fragmentation. We don't have thousands of different apps, and we don't have data all over the place. But when we chat, then we know we can search in one place and find what we chatted about. The fourth is interesting. It's just a modern app. So one of the clients is pretty modern, and it's just the UI, the UX is very good, and there's a lot of features. So it sounds stupid, but it's a huge reason to actually say, yeah, this is cool. We can use it. We want to use it, and it helps the other arguments as well. Interesting facts about Matrix. It's out of beta since 2019. The French government and the German Ministry of Defense are using it. The apps are called TCHAP and BW Messenger. There's an interesting feature or capability which is bridging. You can bridge popular other messaging apps to make the move smoother, or to still be able to use the others, but actually stay on the open source clients and using as much as possible the Matrix protocol natively. So WhatsApp bridge, Telegram bridge, Slack bridge, and others. Another interesting fact is on Thursday, authorities in India filed a petition alleging that the new terms of WhatsApp, of course, weren't only a threat to personal privacy, but to national security as well. So it's a really interesting fact to get this in right now. And if someone asks you, hey, I'm using WhatsApp, I don't want to use WhatsApp anymore, don't say Signal, say, why don't you use the Matrix? Why don't you host your own server? That's much safer, much better. So here's a nice overview of the components that we're going to look at today, of the installation that we're going to go through today. The core components: Synapse, the reference implementation of Matrix, of the Matrix organization, and Element Web, the reference implementation of a web client, a database, and some Jitsi components, so we can also have a nice video conferencing app built into the Element Matrix client. Supporting components: proxy server, turn server, identity server. Yeah, not that important, but also comes with it. So let's go over the core components again, just see how it looks like on this slide. So we have the blue components here are the Docker containers. The red ones are just the clients here, and the purple ones are what the purple arrows are what components are using the Matrix protocol. Smartphones, desktop apps, they communicate through the turn server. When it comes to peer-to-peer calls that failed, then it goes through a turn server. Also, when using the Jitsi components, they directly they directly use the Jitsi components. But all the rest is basically the matrix protocol, so all the rest goes through here. Also browsers are also clients. Browsers, when they want to get the GUI components and all that for the website, then they go through the proxy as well and get it from our Element client web component, which we're also going to be running with this setup. All the rest is basically the matrix protocol going from these Element clients, browser, smartphone, desktop apps to the proxy, and then either going to the identity server if they come through an identity. So if you're using an email to identify yourself and not part of the not the exact matrix username, then you would go through the identity server. But the main point is most of the matrix requests go to API requests go to the Synapse server, the reference server that we're using, and the Postgres is attached to that, the Postgres database. So this is how it's simplified, only the matrix protocol. The client send a API, a REST API or HTTP request made to matrix.yourBaseDomain. That goes to the proxy, and the proxy sends it either to the identity server if it's to identify first, but usually to the Synapse server, and the Synapse server sends it back to the clients. Small slide about how the browsers go to element.yourBaseDomain, so in my case example.org, and then they go to the proxy, go to the element web, and get that back. We're going to be using this playbook, this Ansible playbook, which sets up Dockers to run all these components that we just spoke about. If you're not familiar with Ansible, just think of it as a tool that helps you get stuff running, specifically these Dockers running. If you're not familiar with Dockers, then it's just small containers running on your machine and small isolated parts that are just running, so they're not disturbed and don't have any dependencies. I'm going to go to I'm going to go to this link. So you can also go to this link if you want to see, if you want to read slower, but you can always just follow here what I'm doing. So on the page, you go to the docs, and you go to the README, and that's where it all begins. Prerequisites. Unfortunately, it only runs stably on x86 and Debian 9+. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the Ansible playbook locally. Usually Ansible is used from a different server, and it installs stuff on another server. So from one server to another, or from one machine to another machine, and we're going to use it on the same machine. These are the things that you have already, because Debian usually has that. So root, access, Python 3. You need to install Ansible, so just install Ansible. This you don't need, it's just a services check, and then some DNS records, and you have to have a domain, and if you're not just testing and running locally, but it's better to just run it with a domain, and then all these ports, you have to open them. So Continuing configuring the DNS records, you would have to have I'm just going over quickly because I don't have enough time. So you would have to have a DNS record matrix pointing at the IP address of the server that you want to have everything installed on, so not the server that you're using it from. In our case, we're doing it, the Ansible playbook is going to run on the same machine that we're installing everything on, so yep. And then element subdomain going to matrix dot your domain, CNAME, another CNAME for Jitsi, that's what we are doing, and another record for federation. All this is when you have a real setup. We're just gonna see that it works locally, so I just showed you this, but we're not going to do that. Configuring the Ansible playbook. The instructions are here, so I'm just going to show you how to do it with the Debian GUI, but if you want to use the terminal, you can also go through these instructions. After just cloning the project or downloading the project from GitHub, you would have an examples directory. You need to copy these two files to other places. So the hosts file goes in the inventory directory, and the host vars.yaml goes in the host vars directory. In another directory you create, so you create this directory here, matrix dot, and then your domain name, and here is the host, and here you change the host vars file to vars.yaml. And in the other file in the examples directory, you put in the inventory directory. Here it is, hosts. One more thing, the hosts file of the machine itself, because I'm running it locally without a DNS records and a domain name, I just chose something, example.org, and I faked these three subdomains to go to my private IP address. The hosts file is gonna look like this. Yeah, for some reason I can't modify this file, so I'm just going to open it again. There you go. Now you can see the last line is matrix dot, and here you need your domain name, and then the Ansible host. We have local host here, but what you need is your IP address, your public IP address. And then there's the Ansible SSH user, which is root, because we're running it on the same machine from which we're running the playbook. And we're logged in as root. So Ansible connection is also local, because we're not running it from a different machine. Then we have over here the most important file, which has the variables that we want to configure for the setup with Ansible. The matrix domain is your domain name, and here you have, if you want SSL certificates to be generated, then you can put your email here, so they send you emails when there's something with the certificates. Generate two secrets, one for the turn server, one for the Synapse server, which is again the reference implementation of the matrix server. You can use this pwgen tool for that real quick. I'm doing a self-sign for the SSL certificates because there's no domain name and it's all local. So that's this variable here. You don't need this variable if you're not doing it locally to test. And then I also added the matrix Jitsi enabled variable. So we have Jitsi because that's optional. And then I have here, this can be generated with a script from the inventory scripts, and you don't have to type it all in, but it's just a few secrets and passwords for Jitsi components. And the last variable is just enabling registration, because that's disabled per default. If you want other people to be able to log in to register on your server, you can enable that for them. Otherwise, you can just use a bash script, or there's even an Ansible command here to add users. So back to here, this is what I just explained here, and installing is this part here. So if you're not running locally, you might have to add ask pass, or if you're doing it with SSH keys, then -k. But I'm just going to use this command straight up, and after that you have to use a comma start to get this command done straight afterwards as well. That's what I'm going to do. I already ran this just so it's quicker because we don't have enough time. So I'm gonna, I don't know if I want to run this again. Yeah, I don't think we have enough time. But if you run this basically, then it sets up everything. And obviously you're probably going to get some kind of error. Don't worry about it. Just look at the error or ask a question in the group set for this playbook on the matrix, or you can Google it, but you can just ask in the group, that's easier. After you run it, if it's locally, don't forget to accept the self-signed certificates on all the subdomains that we used. So element dot your domain, your fake domain name, and Jitsi dot whatever, and matrix dot whatever. You have to enable the self-signed certificates, but I already did that. So in here you can just do sign in. I already created an account, and you just do test, was the account name, and you just log in, and that's it. And then this is the setup, and here you can already look for people, and well, locally you can't really do that, but that is the setup. If there's time, then this will be shown as well. Here I have my instance running on chagai.website, and I have a nice bridge here. I'll post links on the pad. You can test the bridge. You can see here that people are writing from WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack, and other matrix instances. Here you see Chagai Telegram. Here's just Chagai. Here is WhatsApp user. I also use this as a general way to communicate every day with my WhatsApp users. They don't even know that I'm using a Element as a client to use my WhatsApp and Telegram. And yeah, I really recommend it. I want to thank Slavi for making this amazing Ansible playbook, and Suman for helping me with this, and Manu for helping me with this. And yeah, I'm looking forward for the questions.
You can talk now.
So we're live now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's no questions, then just want to thank Suman and Manuel again for helping me with everything. And that's it. Yeah. If anyone's interested, just contact me and I can answer more questions or help out.